and welcome back to another episode of Bobble Pod with me, Mr. Bobble, with my official Mr. Bobble merch. Don't know if you can see it. It was a little gift from the team. Thank you very much. Maybe if we could get even more popular, we could start our own little merch channel. I don't know, people buying Mr. Bobble, get it everywhere. Today we're going to be talking about the rising cost of paid media. Now, this is quite interesting because I mentioned this as one of my top 6 digital trends to watch out for back in January. And a lot of people have asked me about the rising cost of paid media and thoughts on this, especially when I be going to marketing showcase events, etc. So I thought I'd do a specific talk on this one. But before I begin, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hello YouTube, don't forget to click on the subscribe button and don't forget to follow the Mr. Bobble official social media platforms. So, rising cost of paid media. I talked about this, one of my key trends. Yeah.
Has anything changed since then? Because I know it was only like, a lot. 5-6 weeks ago, but it feels like the world's changed quite a lot. There's
more than 5-6 weeks, probably, I think.
Was it a couple of months ago?
It goes out end of Jan, early Feb. We're into April now. So about 2 months ago, at least.
Is it April now?
Yeah.
Oh, it's my dad's birthday yesterday.
For me, I've seen a lot change. I think economically, it's very tentative, low growth, slow economy, hesitancy to spend impacts how much people spend. But that has a snowball effect. The less people then spend in Google Ads, the more Google wants to make, or Alphabet wants to make its profit margins. That's why you're seeing an increase in CPC, because they're making it more expensive to maintain the level of revenue and profit margins they're making. One thing you got to realize about big businesses in particular is they're not going to want to give up revenue and profit margins. They don't want a bad quarter. Impacts share price, impacts value of the company, impacts dividends, etc. So they got quarterly targets to hit. And unfortunately, it's like any other business, whether it's a retail customer, that's why your food prices are going up. It's all dictated by market and economical conditions. And unfortunately, we're not in the best economical conditions. And that's been hampered more by the recent news of tariffs from the US, which is smart from the US perspective in terms of them. He's only done it, you can tell, to get trade deals over the line quickly, vastly, that benefit more towards the US than what his predecessor had agreed. That's why he's done it. You already got like 50 to 60 countries that have like, let's just get a trade deal done quickly. Let's get this done. Let's just get back to business, which is what he kind of wants. But then there's some bigger countries like China, like, no. But it's going to have an impact. And we talked about this, when we talked about the emergency update review. We as agencies work with clients who end up buying ads on platforms like Google, platforms like Meta, platforms like LinkedIn, who aren't actually based in this country. They're based in Ireland. So they say they're based in Ireland, which means they avoid tax in this country, yet they continue to increase CPCs. Now, I wouldn't mind if that company was here in this country paying VAT here, paying corporation tax here, but it's the companies and agencies that are buying the ads, paying for it. They're making all the money, but the government and the economy doesn't really benefit from that.
Yeah.
The only people that benefit from the ad spend is Google and Meta, and the only people that benefit from Google Meta is Ireland. They need to close that loophole in terms of, elements and make it a bit more fair, because you've got billions of pounds of ad spend in the UK, and I mean billions with a B, going through these platforms. And that is not being put back into the economy. We're buying products as a result of that. People are buying products and spending, but that ad spend is all going abroad. And I think that's incorrect. But then the question is, why are the CPCs going up? So when you look at the last 5 years, a lot has changed. I think the biggest problem, and I don't think Meta or Google foresaw this, is 5 years ago, we used to build out ad groups very specifically in Google Ads. So what you would do is you would build everything out in Google Ads by individual product, and there'd be ad groups and a few keywords, and there'd be exact match, broad match, phrase match, and everything would be broken out, very broken out, and it was all search. But Google's moved into an automation model. The GDPR issues around the shopping and everything that came out with Google has led to more automation. Google want more automation, do it by yourself. They've got their own overviews. They moved away from supporting agencies. They started outsourcing to third-party, really terrible companies that call and harass you all the time, and they're not good at the job. And it's actually detrimental to performance for actual companies, and it's very rude what they're doing. Then you have companies like Meta that got impacted by GDPR and got impacted by iPhone's iOS update, iOS 14. People forget about that. And the limitations of tracking. I mean, don't forget, Facebook put out a huge ad in the Financial Times calling out Apple for that.
Right.
Apple is all about protecting the consumer's data. I like how Apple operates. That's why I have an iPhone. But in the UK, we're not able to have that security feature that came out in the news a while back. So when you think about all these platforms like Google and Meta having to move more to automation, you can't be as targeted anymore. You've got PMax campaigns, which is all of Google's products, as one platform. Then you've got, Advantage Plus audience segments, and you've got used to break down campaigns by individual audiences in Meta as well. And you'd be like, right, saying this age group would have a different ad and this age group would have a different ad. And these audiences would be broken down, and you'd break it down by region. It'd be very broken out. That got scrapped and it all went to broad. But as a result, I think that from being individual, where it kept the CPC bid in line or competitive, because then you'd only have certain people bidding for certain keywords, it's become very broad. We've gone to more broader specific keywords that have become more overly competitive. In Meta, you're going after the same audience that a lot of people are going for, because they're not defined audiences as much as you would like them to be because of the level of targeting available to you. The introduction of PMax means more money is going into PMax as opposed to a CPC bid. So when we look at SpyFu, which is a tool that allows you to see, which brands are spending, how many keywords they're actually spending on, you'll see no matter what brand is, then the volume, and that only tracks search, by the way, so search campaigns, the volume of paid keywords have dropped down significantly because people started getting rid of the keywords that aren't relevant anymore, only working on the top highly relevant keywords they're bidding on. That means those keywords become more expensive because more people are competing for the same space. And with PMax, it means they've got more control, automation. So when I talk about why is the cost of paid media going down, it comes down to probably like three key elements, which is the targeting options available due to economical and environmental, political elements in terms of like GDPR policies and stuff like that have come into play, which means you can't be as targeted as you want, which means you're more broader and you end up spending more, which means you're actually targeting the same audience and competing for the same audience with a lot of more brands than you used to, so it's become more competitive, which naturally drives up the cost of CPCs and CPMs. As people don't know what CPC is, cost per click, CPM is cost per 1,000 impression, right? So that's happened. So the more we're automating, the more we're bringing down and going a bit more broader, it means it's going to become a lot more competitive in terms of what we're doing. That's why we're seeing a surge in SEO performance, because brands are less likely than wanting to pay like £5-6 cost per click because it's cutting into their profit margin and paid media. So they're spending time and investment in terms of the long term, which is SEO. Would you rather bid for the term PPC agency leads or rank position 1? And I checked this morning again, we're still number 1 for PPC agency leads, and we're number 1 in the map pack as well. So I'd rather be there and spend my time and effort and resources protecting that position, because it still drives leads. Okay, those people that are bidding on it, but they'll be bidding like, between £8 to £10 cost per click, to get that through. So it's only going to get more competitive as more people focus on that specific keyword. So over the last 5 years, so much has changed.
Yeah.
And it's gone from, more manual approach to more automated approach.
Where is it heading then? What's the impact of this?
It's unknowable, to be honest with you. Right now, it's very uncertain because you've got so many other factors like machine learning tools and artificial intelligence playing a role. I do talk about tackling Google in an AI digital age, where I talk about Gemini, Google's Gemini, and the impact that's playing not just on Google Ads, but your organic search within Google. So it's only going to, I don't know, because it's very rare for me to say I don't know, because there's so much going on. There's so much innovation going on in the industry that all that's going to happen is your costs are going to continue to go up in terms of what you're bidding for. That will start to price out potentially the smaller businesses. So who can afford to pay for specific CPCs? It'll be the bigger brands who are going to benefit from that. So this is a problem I have with platforms like Meta and Google and the control of this pricing, because everybody uses those elements. They're a monopoly. And if they say they're not, prove to me you're not a monopoly. And don't say, well, we compete with Google, Meta. No, you're a social media platform, they're a search platform. You know, if you look at it specifically, you're only being really competed by TikTok. Snapchat and X, you blow out of the water. Same with Pinterest. You know, you are the dominant social media platform, Meta. Let's be honest with you. Mm-hmm. You know, your biggest competitor is TikTok, but you end up buying everything else that becomes a competitor. Google, you're 90% of the search market space across the globe. Forget specifically in the UK. I think it's like 92 or 93% in the UK. So it's like 93% of customers are going to use you as a search platform compared to Bing. You know, so Bing has an opportunity to close the gap against Google. The only way Bing can close the gap against Google is ChatGPT, which it owns through OpenAI.
Right.
What we noticed as a trend is one of our clients, Milliken, was seeing a lot of traffic go to a particular blog, and we realized it was their back-end HubSpot picked it up as ChatGPT. So then we did some analysis and research into it and realized that actually that blog around neurodiversity is being picked up by ChatGPT as a reference along with Financial Times and a few others. So they're actually then getting a lot of traffic from that. So people aren't just going to Google anymore. There's an opportunity to go to ChatGPT. ChatGPT, if they're smart, should integrate into Bing.
Okay.
As a search platform. They should have Bing and ChatGPT integrate into one. That will level the playing field in terms of in the search market space, because then you have two. You have Google and you have ChatGPT incorporated in Bing, which is a very small search platform. That would change the game. That's what I would advocate for if I was to go to government and say, right, there's a significant increase, there's not enough competition, you've got one player in the market that's dominating and actually setting the pricing, increasing prices without telling us. So, you know, where's the competition laws here? How are you protecting Joe Blogs? And this is what it's all about. I mean, I work in this industry, but I work with clients. Some of my clients, I'm very fortunate, are international clients and some are national. But the bulk of our clients are people that are based in Leeds, but might be, you know, a 10 million turnover company, but their budget is still only around about, 100, 200 grand across all their marketing. Does that make sense? So it's refined budgets and it's them companies that are getting impacted and priced out.
Yeah.
So how do you protect them? Because we just talked about this in the previous episode with Art, where we talked about, you know, getting married to Sam, sales and marketing. It's the most important function within your business. You need to invest in that. But if you're getting priced out because these companies are monopolistic and they control what's going on, I would advocate, that Bing be a key player in it, because it's the only second, search platform out there. But if you're smart, Bing, and you're smart, ChatGPT, integrate the two.
For the last 5 minutes since you first said that, all my brain can do is try and figure out what would you call it if you combine ChatGPT and Bing. And so I've done Ching.
Cortana.
Call it Ching.
I call it Cortana. I think they nailed it on the head when they created their AI element Cortana, which was originally named after the AI
is it still
from Halo. Yeah. So you've got Cortana as like Microsoft's kind of like old AI, which is now changed to Copilot and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But they named their original voice.
I remember it on the ads.
Cortana, and I love that idea because it was taken from what was my favorite game growing up, which was Halo. So, it came from that. But that's just a fun fact. But generally, it's like you should combine elements too. Or you bring in Bing into ChatGPT. Because the problem is, Bing is hosted on Explorer. Is it still called Explorer? And it's dog shit. No one uses Explorer. You use it, and I have a go at you for using it because it's just not secure. And I have a policy that you use Chrome, or at the very least, use Mozilla, right? If you're an Apple, you end up using Safari. But what's the default search platform in Safari? It's Google. If you go and you get your mobile phone out now, and you've got an app or Safari, it's a Google search.
Yeah.
Right? If you go into Chrome, what's Chrome going to be? It's Google, Google's element, and it's one of the best Chrome, right? Because it's integrated with Google. That's where people go. That's the problem Bing has in the marketplace, and why it can't compete is because it's stuck with a very, very, very bad Window Explorer. I don't know if it's called Window Explorer, but it's called Edge now or something.
It is called Edge.
Yeah. It's really bad. I mean, with every other product you've created, Microsoft, with all the money you have, you still come up with that piece of shit. Like, it's really
always been
bad.
terrible, hasn't it?
So
I just think it's a really bad name.
Revolutionary, if you're smart, and you can take this idea for free, just pay me commission or thank me or reference me in the future, right, is get rid of Edge.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is where all the traffic goes. Make ChatGPT the Explorer and integrate Bing into that. So they could do that if they wanted, where they could have an element that pulls in organic search and people can click on ads and go through to websites, as well as still have the ChatGPT function growing. Then you're actually creating a tool where ChatGPT as an app is integrated into your mobile phones and into your actual devices and stuff. And you're not having to go into an Explorer, but you get the Explorer benefits of search from Bing, which creates it more efficient. Then you have the capabilities of looking at, well, what are people typing into search, well, ChatGPT search, what images and stuff, and how do I overlay that? I tell you, if they did do that, Google would throw their dummy out of the pram because they would not be able to compete with that. And I said about, AI and Google and what is the risk. ChatGPT is a huge competitor to Google right now. And one of the examples we're seeing is, people go to ChatGPT for information and answers. So why is CPC building up? So many different. Why is the paid media cost going up? Because people are going. Thankfully, in Google compared to Google, there's more out there available in terms of where people can go get resource information. But Google has to keep its margins, so it's going to continue increasing its CPC costs because it wants to continue making revenue. It doesn't want a down quarter. And that just comes down to business economics, unfortunately, whether you're an end-of-consumer user or not. It might be a bit of contradiction what I've said there, but I want another player in there so that, competition should drive down prices, in theory, shouldn't increase prices. So I'd love to see that. So that's some of the reasons why we're seeing a significant increase in paid media costs right now, is because of everything's so much broader in terms of targeting. You've got to be really defined with your ads now. It's automation, GDPR policies, economical environments where businesses are under pressure, so they're not really spending as much as well. Introduction of automated tools like PMax, etc., and stuff like that, where a lot of budget's going into, so you're naturally seeing people spend less on search as a result of that. You've got other factors out there that are impacting in terms of like economical.
Yep. What are your tips then? What should people be doing to get the best value? Assuming people having to squeeze their budgets pretty tight now, what's best practice?
I think what we've been seeing in Q1 a lot is a lot of businesses request audits and strategies. Like audit everything they're doing from an organic, paid social, paid search perspective. What's working, what's not working, where should they really focus their resources? Unfortunately, we've been hit by that as well, because as companies face economical pressures, unfortunately, the marketing element gets hit the most. So if a company's spending just on, let's say, PPC, but it's quite expensive and their ROAS is quite low, they're just going to cut it. They're just not going to continue to spend on it. They don't realize that all they're doing is spending on PPC, and they're not supporting that with organic search or paid social. They're literally squeezing out what they can from one channel without supporting it with a multi-channel approach. So ironically, the advice is don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your money into Google. Put a bit of money into Bing. Put a bit of money into Meta. Put a bit of money into TikTok. Put a bit of money into invest into your website. Invest into your SEO. If you're an e-commerce brand, have you got an Amazon store? You on eBay, look at other elements of marketplaces, making sure that, or you're not just, I think the problem I'm seeing right now is everyone's just focused on performance, and that's bad. It shouldn't just be performance. It has to be performance supported by brand awareness and building. I think Art put it in the last episode in a very, very, very great way, where he explained that the best businesses, marketing is just basically communication. And if you want to be in the top 2%, you're able to communicate it the best way, really. So you got to communicate what you do. And the best way to communicate that is not by just focusing on one channel, is by utilizing multiple channels and then looking at the data and adapting your budgets, adapting your process systems internally, externally as part of the marketing function to where to invest better. So a lot of the strategies we're doing is we're auditing LinkedIn ad accounts, TikTok ad accounts, Meta, Google, organic, the SEO. So we're doing full audits and strategies, and then we're saying actually this is where you can improve here, this is where you can improve here. Actually, we would recommend spending less here and more here, etc. But only by doing that analysis are people understanding where best to milk out the best performance.
Okay. The last question on our episode plan is actually something that I think I kind of asked you earlier on. So it's about where you see things going over the next kind of 3 to 5 years. So, and by all means, reflect more on that if you want to do, but I wanted to change it slightly to ask you, how far ahead do you think people should be planning at the moment? Can you plan 3-5 years ahead in terms of you kind of your paid media strategy at the moment, or is that just a waste of time considering the way the world is?
When I did the Lay the Land podcast in terms of where we are, and that some people are planning month by month, quarter by quarter, some people aren't planning at all. That's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
If you're smart, you're planning for the next 12 months and beyond.
Right.
You got to have a short-term strategy in place that's going to get towards. You need to have a long-term plan and short-term plans in place to achieve your long-term plan, like milestones essentially. So it's like, this is what we want to achieve in the next 5 years. So a smart company, let's say a big company that, let's say, is turning over 50 million, says that actually in 5 years' time, we want to be a $250 million turnover company. We want to go from 50 million to 250 million. Right, that's your long-term strategy and plan. How are you going to do that? We're going to invest X amount, and we're going to grow these elements of the business, and then we're going to innovate and create these products, etc. That's internal marketing planning, what they're going to do. Externally, then, they appoint someone that achieves that over the 5-year plan. However, we break it down into short-term achievable chunks. So then short-term, we look at, right, what's working, what's not working, where are the opportunities to build, implement the quick fixes, identify all the functions of the marketing are actually working. You do that in the first 3 to 6 months, then you get it ready to scale. So, right, now we know that we've got good data and everything's working, everything's tracking. We know that you're able to produce a content, we know we're targeting the right audiences, all the different aspects you'd look at. You'd say, right, now we've done the 3-6 months, now let's look at the next 6 months. Then you do a 12-month plan, and then you do a 2-year plan, and then you review, or you just keep it as 12 months when you get to that 5 years. So basically 3, 6, 12 months in the first 2 years is how you would kind of break it down. After 2 years, you would assess, right? Are you 150, 200, are you over 100 mil? Essentially, in 2 years, that's where you'd want to get to in a 2-year period of time at the very least. You want double, then can you double in the next 2 years? So actually, by the time you get to 1 year into a year after that, 250 million should be more closer to 300 million. Does that make sense? But that would require continued investment, continued elements through it. So that's a big company example. Small company can't, because they're so impacted by economical environments that where do they begin? And that's where they're just making it up as they go along, right? Have we got the money to spend? We'll spend. But they're so focused on what they expect it to achieve than what it should do, that actually expectations versus reality has gone through the elements. And then you're competed by, all these bullshit agencies that come in at a low price and then say, right, yeah, but I can achieve this for this, but then you don't get good quality service, you don't get transparency of the work you're being done. They're not innovating. They're really good at doing a few things a bit, and that's good for about 3-6 months. Then 12 months later, you're back to square one. So you would have had short-term success potentially, but then you're in a rut, and then you're like, yeah, it didn't really work out. We got some initial results, but then it tailed off. Why? Because they just did the same thing. It's like, it's getting that quick fix. And then you end up chasing the next quick fix. But then you end up saying, oh, the agency was bad. Actually, have a good look in the mirror. It was your decision-making to appoint that agency at that time. And I know it's difficult when budgets are restrained. And, we're talking about the rising cost of paid media and everything's going up in terms of costs. But you've got to think smartly about this. You've got to take your time. You've got to have patience. A lot of innovation and elements going to come in that are going to make things cheaper. Look at DeepSeek and what that's done to the AI marketplace in terms of making it more affordable, in terms of getting into it. You've got to have patience. Prices will come down. I've given a great example what ChatGPT could become as like a search function, getting rid of Edge. Mm-hmm. Imagine if that became more of an integrated element. That became, ChatGPT became its own web browser.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? It'd work so much better as a web browser than anything, because all the search and the learnings would come from that. That would then allow Bing to come into the fold, supported by the data from OpenAI and ChatGPT around search. So it's like, if something like that happens, it changes it. And that's what I mean. It's hard to say what's going to go in the next 3-5 years. All I know and what I can say is that more innovation, machine learning and AI is going to take over as a function. And you've got to find a way to integrate that into your digital marketing. I'm already working on that. The next 5 years are going to be really defined by AI. A lot of people are going to be made, I won't say redundant, but their jump function is going to have to be reviewed based on how AI continues to develop and evolve. And it's developing and evolving at a really fastly rate than people actually would care to admit. And those people that don't think about it now, when it comes to 3-5 years' time, no offense, you're not going to be relevant. You're not even going to be in the conversation. And I wouldn't even work with that company, because I'm just like, if you're 3-5 years behind, I can't do anything here. You're a goner, essentially. You didn't adapt, you didn't innovate, you didn't consider digital transformation, and you weren't patient enough to plan for the long term. It's like, Mark, look at what's his name, who owns a lot of shares in Coca-Cola, one of the richest mans in the world. Warren Buffett, that's the guy. That's who I mean. Finally came to me. His stocks are still in profit compared to everybody else this year, which is quite shocking and interesting to see. But like, it's the only reason I say is that because he planned for the long term with his stock buying. He's not thinking short term. He's thinking long term. You can't just be so reactive just because of a little dip. You've got to think, right, there's going to be dips as you go up and up and up. It's, are you willing to ride those dips and be patient and see what it has? And unfortunately, I sympathise. SMEs do not have the patience and will not have the patience, unfortunately, in this economic environment, to see out that slight dip and uncertainty in the market. And where companies that are bigger will, they'll just end up absorbing more share of voice and market share. So went off a little bit from the topic, but at least I've explained why those costs are going up. It's a lot of things, not just one specific element. There's multiple reasons why the paid media costs are going up significantly in the marketplace, and they're only going to continue to go up this year. And we'll continue to post updates about it when Google announces a 10% increase in CPCs and stuff like that. We'll let you know. Just check out our company blogs and stuff like that and company page updates. So a lot more of that you'll see coming through. My advice is look at how much you were spending last year and what your cost per acquisition and cost per click and cost per CPM, your CPM was, and do a 12-month year-on-year comparison. And then you'll see that actually your CPC costs are going up, your CPM costs are going up. You're not seeing the CPA come down drastically, In some cases, they'll be improving, but generally, you'll see the cost of paid media is increasing. Any other questions?
Nope.
No. Right. Hope that's been helpful. Really wanted to just deep dive a little bit more into that specific comment. We will be exploring some of the elements of the digital marketing trends throughout the year. Before I go, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. And if you're on YouTube, subscribe and connect with us on YouTube. And don't forget to follow my social handles, at Mr. Bobble Official. If you're not sure what Mr. Bobble looks like, here's New Jersey and top from the team. I look forward to catching you on the next episode.